Hello and welcome to Epic Battlecry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal on the gaming industry today. I am here with I'm your host, Tony Grice, and here with Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams on Monday, July 21st, 2014. I had to look at our calendar to see what day it was today.
Yeah. Well, most people do.
It's weird the way that works out.
It is. All right.
Podcasting's a hell of a drug, ain't it?
So our first question today, first one of this week, comes from Cole Miltenberger. He comes from @Cole Manzilla.
Have you ever had a Miltenberger, by the way?
What's that?
Have you ever had a Miltenberger? Those are good.
They're devilishly good.
Yeah.
Get it? Get it?
Yeah. In fact, I think his middle name should be Slaw.
Oh, Jesus. After reading this question, though, I kind of wonder. This guy, he sounds just a little slow. So we'll go through it. Hopefully, it makes sense in the end. He says, @EpicBattleX, should big series like Halo and Uncharted end their story arcs with their main protagonists, or continue on forever, a la Nintendo? I think he's saying
this is a well-crafted question. Don't you guys think?
I think he did fit a lot in the Twitter has very few characters.
Yeah, it's only 140 characters. He really maximized the. He
did.
Do you think that he might have had help?
I wish, I feel like there should have been more to this question. Somebody else could have probably made it a much deeper, with much more meaning behind it. But we'll deal with what Cole has given us here. Anyway, but I do think it's actually a good question. We kind of touched on this a little bit with Uncharted when we were talking about Uncharted 4. Yeah. But I think it's kind of a good question. Should these series just kind of continue on forever with their main characters, or like maybe change it up and continue the series with, say, a new character, or like how Nintendo does it? They just kind of bring the games out and it's continually the same. Yeah, the same
characters, same scenario.
I guess
basically, all Nintendo characters are trapped in hell. It's the same
it's like Groundhog
scenario
Day they just keep
forever. Every day they wake up, gotta save the princess again. It is basically hell.
What do you think, though? You want to start us off, Brent? Like, what do you think? Because I know you're a big Uncharted fan, and we kind of know Master Chief's been around for pretty much the entire of the Halo series, just about, except for a couple of
Yeah, I don't think he was in Reach and around. Anyway, my point is this: it depends. There's a threshold. There's a threshold to this, and some characters do kind of rise to the occasion of always being renewed and continually, being perpetually young and always in the same scenario. And I'm thinking of characters like Superman, Batman, James Bond. There are those characters that have managed to kind of live past their initial wave of popularity and are renewed, for every generation, and just continue on throughout time. And you could very easily make video games about those characters. So when I look at this question, I basically ask myself: is Master Chief, is Nathan Drake, do those characters, do they rise to that same level of pop culture consciousness as a Mario, a James Bond, a Batman? And I don't know is the honest answer, and I don't think that I can know until we get 20 years down the line and find out whether or not people are still responding to those characters and the games and presumably other forms of media that they'll be in, film, television, etc. And find out whether or not people are still getting something out of them. I tend to find, or I tend to believe, I have no scientific evidence for this, but I tend to believe that...
Part for the course.
I tend to believe that the reason that those characters hang on is because they kind of fill some fundamental archetype that that remains relevant with every passing generation. In other words, it's not like an action figure or an action hero that is only relevant to one generation, and the next generation comes along and says, that's stupid. But they're about something very fundamental that everybody taps into, no matter their age. And that's the question that I don't know the answer to yet, as far as Master Chief or Nathan Drake goes.
What do you think, DK?
I think it all comes down to story implementation, the scope, the scale, what the intent of the content is. You know, you basically put them on opposite ends of a scale, and you say we're going for a story and a story-driven experience, and the reward you get from that is the captivation of being able to tell that tale through the content that you're creating, whether that is a Master Chief's story from start to finish, or that is a Mass Effect that involves the end user and has a story arc that has a conclusion. The reward that you have for telling that type of story is that you create a deeply engaging experience that can only be constructed from the perspective of following that story. On the opposite spectrum, you're creating an iconic character who has a very top-line story that is relatable and fun. We know Mario is a plumber. That's all we really know about him, and he's going to save the princess. But his story doesn't matter. I don't think in all the years I've been around, no one has ever said, did you play Mario Galaxy or Mario this? Because, oh, what a great story. Nobody cares about the story. It's not really a story.
It's more just a premise. It's more just a premise for the game to occur.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I think that those are the two approaches. Now, this question says, should big series like Halo and Uncharted end story arcs? I would say the answer is no. They shouldn't end those because they went to the creative table. They went to the drawing board with the intent to create a story-driven experience that invites you into the world of these particular characters who have a shelf life in your mind because you're trying to progress through the story. So I would say no, they shouldn't adapt to a formula of Mario. Now, does that mean that a franchise per se can't do that? No, it doesn't mean that. Look at Assassin's Creed. I mean, this is an example of kind of a universe, a higher arcing tale that kind of invites different characters into its story. I think kind of smartly developed in that way. But, you know, and like you were mentioning with Batman and other characters, the reason why their longevity is probably so long, not only due to the identity of their characters, but because their story arcs take place in such maybe confined spaces. You know, when you play a game, you know, like Batman or read a comic book, it's always like, here's this event that's happening, and like this, you're invited to go into that event. So if you step into a day in that character's lives, then you can kind of keep repeating that, or a series of days, that it makes sense to kind of be invited back to those individual experiences over the course of time. But yeah, I think it has everything to do with the developers, the content creators, their conception of what time means to them and how they implement it within the story, if they even choose to implement it at all.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with you. I actually agree with both of you. I think had good points. I think it does come down.
You can't polar opposite from each other. No.
It is. Well, no, I think you both had very good points. I think if you do like a story, like honestly, you take something like a Mario or Samus Aran or something like that. You take like a character who really the core story is less what you know about the series. The series is kind of more known for its gameplay, or its, you know, or the world that you're in. It's not necessarily about like, oh, we have to see the, you know, the huge change in the lives of these characters that are going on. Right. Whereas you see something where you're going for maybe, I think, an arguably more realistic take. I mean, even though like the world that Master Chief lives in is not a real one, I think it is presented into a way to that, you know, they want to make it believable in the world they've created. And to make it believable, I sort of do think that there is a point. Now, I don't necessarily know that we've reached it yet, but I do think that there is a point that if you just continually make series, Uncharted is probably a better example of where I think this would be harder to do. You know, the closest character to something like that would be something like a Indiana Jones. And, you know, realistically, you know, you think like, well, we've known Indiana Jones for so long, but really we only have 3 movies that have ever been made about him. Yeah. And anybody want to correct me on that?
No, nobody wants to correct that. 3 movies. Keep talking.
3 movies and a parody. But in all seriousness, that's a character that, like, I'll be honest, I think if they tried to make 12 movies out of the Indiana Jones character, I think it would begin to really become overly silly and would kind of detract away from maybe the better part.
Indiana Jones was born out of the same mold as James Bond, and James Bond has has continually been renewed.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
But now gone out of popularity, come back, and so forth. So
I think that's even slightly different. That's even more maybe in the sense of something like Assassin's Creed, where even though they don't ever directly say it, I think you are meant to believe that there are different James Bonds over time. Like, it's not just a single man that has lived for that period of time. I think it is a position, a role.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's one of those things that, you and I have talked about a lot, and the question is, is whether or not there is any continuity between,
right? I don't think
those different actors, and it's a fascinating
well, what's great
idea.
is that
I mean, everybody takes it differently, but
everyone takes it different. They never officially say this is the thing, and if they were,
is it the same Mario? Is it the same Mario in Sunshine?
Dude,
that was
now
in Super
I'm
Mario
tripping.
Brothers
It might be a
3?
different Mario. Holy
but in a way, though, the whole thing with the
Zelda.
Mario, and that's the perfect
Link.
example, is that doesn't matter. Link
Right.
in the Zelda games, and Zelda too, is different quite often. I mean, they've actually changed which one it is a couple different times over the last few,
Which the genius is that his name is Link.
Yeah. Well,
Dude, this episode's too much, man.
Anyway, really, really well-worded question. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more
That's not self-serving at all, considering
everyone
you
can tell there's an inside joke here, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks, Cole, for your question. And as always, hopefully we get more questions from you guys out there. Just make sure to send them to our Twitter handle at @EpicBattleX. And if you haven't already, make sure that you're checking us out on YouTube /EpicBattleX.
YouTube.
And anyway, so make sure you give us your questions. So that's it for today. And if you want to hear the behind the scenes of why that question was kind of funny, then you can listen to the end of the week episode.
There you go.
On Friday.
Happy Monday.
And hear Daniel say inappropriate things.
That Brent may or may not try to edit out.
That Brent may or may not have to edit out. I'm just kidding.